You know that overly dramatic secret handshake in spy movies? Turns out, those awkward palms and finger grabs might actually have roots in secret societies, trying to flex their subtle dominance. And no, we're not talking about your local magician's club. In the 1700s, secret societies like the Freemasons didn't just build cool temples and wear aprons for no reason. These were groups of elites, scholars, and political influencers who believed that regular history was kind of stupid. So they figured, why not rewrite it? And the best part, they used symbols, handshakes, and coded rituals to filter out who was in the know and who was just there for the snacks. The hidden hand gesture, where a person's hand is tucked into their coat like they just misplaced it, wasn't a fashion quirk. Nope. It was code, one that quietly screamed, "I know something you don't. Napoleon did it. Karl Marx did it. Even George Washington pulled this maneuver in portraits." Or either they all had a very inconvenient itch, or someone was handing out the same elite PowerPoint presentation on secret symbolism. But here's the kicker. The gesture meant you were a man of action guided by higher knowledge. Or, depending on who you ask, a guy willing to manipulate history for his club. Tomato, tomato. So the next time you see someone doing the Napoleon pose, ask yourself, secret society, or just really bad at pockets? Okay, imagine you're an explorer in the 1600s, sailing across oceans with a fancy feather in your hat, trying not to die from scurvy or sea monsters. You pull out your trusty map, and it's lying to your face. Not just oops, we miscalculated longitude lying, more like we intentionally removed an entire continent because a secret group decided. You didn't need to know it existed lying. Welcome to the world of manipulated cartography, brought to you by secret societies and imperial puppet masters who basically said, knowledge is power, and we'll be keeping that. Thanks. Here's the thing. Maps were never just about directions. They were political tools, propaganda, and in some cases, cosmic fan fiction. The Jesuits, the Freemasons, and even rogue branches of the Illuminati had enough influence to alter what showed up on those parchment scrolls. Whole regions were erased. Terra incognita became a convenient excuse, and mystical lands like Hyperborea and Lemuria made cameo appearances, like Easter eggs in a Marvel movie. Why? Because if people knew what was really out there, resources, civilizations, ancient tech, forbidden knowledge, the whole we discovered this land narrative would fall apart faster than a TikTok conspiracy rabbit hole. So yes, some maps were pretty, but they were also basically the 17th century version of Photoshop. If you've ever walked past an old building and thought, wow, that's a lot of triangles, congratulations, you've spotted a clue. Secret societies didn't just leave cryptic scrolls and weird Latin phrases behind. They also embedded their beliefs in buildings, because apparently writing in journals was too mainstream. Freemasons in particular had a thing for sacred geometry. To them, every triangle, spiral, and stone was dripping with meaning. columns weren't just for holding up roofs. They represented masculine and feminine forces of the universe, and maybe a little overcompensation. Churches, government halls, even city grids were designed with coded symbolism in mind. Washington, D.C., basically an open-air riddle, streets shaped like pentagrams, obelisks channeling cosmic energy. And don't get me started on the Capitol Dome. It's basically the Illuminati's version of a group selfie. These architectural choices weren't aesthetic flukes. They were tools to shape the world both spiritually and politically. It's like if your city council built an entire town based on horoscopes and nobody questioned it. These architectural choices weren't aesthetic flukes. They were tools to shape the world both spiritually and politically. It's like if your city council built an entire town based on horoscopes and nobody questioned it. Your local courthouse might just be a temple in disguise. Sleep tight. You probably grew up thinking history was written by historians. Cute, adorable, completely wrong. Much of what we call history was actually filtered, massaged, and sometimes aggressively rewritten by elite clubs that met in candlelit rooms, drank weird herbal infusions, and said things like the masses aren't ready. The Freemasons weren't just into architecture and symbolism. They were also low-key obsessed with crafting a new version of history that aligned with their worldview. That meant elevating certain figures like making George Washington into a borderline demigod while downplaying inconvenient truths. You know, like mass colonization or esoteric philosophies from non-Western cultures. That didn't fit the narrative. The Rosicrucians, another one of these mystical gentlemen's clubs, believed they were spiritual time travelers, tasked with awakening humanity's hidden potential, which sounds inspiring until you realize it involved burying real knowledge under layers of metaphor, allegory, and straight-up riddles. These groups acted like history's dungeon masters, deciding which NPCs got screen time and which plot points were deleted entirely. They didn't just rewrite books. They influenced the education systems, the publishing houses, even the language used to describe the past. So when your textbook says discovered instead of colonized, or civilized instead of obliterated, remember, it might have been ghost-written by a guy in robes who thought Atlantis was real. Let's talk about the Enlightenment, that glorious age when reason, science, and rational thought triumphed over superstition. Or, so we were told. In reality, a lot of the enlightened thinkers were knee-deep in secret societies, mystical rites, and alchemical experiments that would make a modern chemist run screaming. Isaac Newton, obsessed with biblical numerology and the occult. Voltaire, Freemason. Ben Franklin hosted secret society meetings in a candlelit basement with skulls on the table, like it was Halloween year-round. The Enlightenment wasn't just about overthrowing religion. It was about replacing it with another belief system, one that looked really rational on the surface, but underneath was swirling with ancient Egyptian symbolism, astrological calendars, and secret initiations that involved, let's just say, more than just books. The irony, while the public was told to trust reason, the elite were out back whispering in code. praying to invisible cosmic forces, and trying to summon the Philosopher's Stone. Basically, the Age of Reason had a pretty wild side hustle. Alright, buckle up, because this one sounds fake, but it's terrifyingly real. Once upon a time, a secretive elite decided to delete 10 days from the calendar. Just snip snip, gone. In 1582, Pope Gregory XIII, backed by church scholars and probably a few cloaked astrologers, looked at the Julian calendar and said, "Yeah, this is broken. Time to erase time." So they introduced the Gregorian calendar and skipped straight from October 4th to October 15th. If you had rent due on the 10th, congratulations, you time traveled past it. But here's the part that smells like cloak and dagger sorcery. The Gregorian reform wasn't just about leap years. It conveniently lined up religious holidays with ancient pagan festivals, adjusted harvest dates, and gave the church even more control over, well, everything. Why does this matter? Because some historians and conspiracy theorists believe that time itself has been tweaked more than once by secret cabals, not just to correct math errors, but to reshape collective memory. There are wild theories that whole centuries were added or erased. Hello, phantom time hypothesis, which basically suggests we might be living in not the real year. So if you've ever felt like time is an illusion, congrats, you might be right. Your calendar might be history's longest running scam. If you wanted to erase dangerous ideas in the old days, you didn't need a YouTube copyright strike. You just needed fire. Secret societies and ruling elites throughout history have had an absolute thing for burning books. Like obsessive levels, the Library of Alexandria, poof, the Mayan codices, toast, countless grimoires, ancient scrolls, and forbidden tomes, all sacrificed to the eternal flame of you don't need to know that. But here's the plot twist. Many of those forbidden books weren't just dark magic or heretical ramblings. Some contained maps to lost civilizations, hidden knowledge about human consciousness, and advanced math that only started reappearing in the 20th century. Whoops. Groups like the Inquisition, the Jesuits, and various crown-backed knowledge regulators believed that if the public got their hands on these scrolls, they might start asking questions. And questioning things is very bad for authoritarian vibes. So they burned first and asked never. So they burned first and asked never. Basically, history has been edited by people who treat libraries like Tinder. Swipe left on anything that challenges the narrative. Let's talk sound, specifically bells. You probably think of church bells as background noise for weddings, funerals, or ominous horror movie scenes. But in the hands of secret societies, bells were basically ancient Bluetooth devices used for psychological control. During the Middle Ages and beyond, certain brotherhoods, particularly within the Templars and the monastic orders tied to alchemy, believed that sound could manipulate the human body, not metaphorically, literally, like shake your soul loose from your skeleton levels of vibration. They weren't just ringing bells for Jesus, they were tuning cities. Cathedrals were often built at energetic ley lines. Yep, we're going there. And the bells were engineered to ring at frequencies that aligned with your chakras or disturbed your sleep, or made you feel weirdly guilty about eating meat on Fridays. It sounds like nonsense until you realize modern science agrees sound can change brainwaves, release hormones, even affect memory formation. So now imagine a bunch of robed monks using bronze megaphones to blast ancient frequencies that made villagers more docile, obedient, or blissfully unaware of that whole peasant uprising happening next door. The Brotherhood of Bells didn't just control time bells equals clocks. They controlled mood. It's medieval ASMR meets social engineering. And you thought your playlist was powerful. You ever stare at money and think, wow, this is suspiciously fancy paper? That's because it kind of is. It's fancy paper loaded with occult symbolism. The dollar bill alone is basically a conspiracy scrapbook. Pyramid with a floating eye. Freemason symbol. Latin phrases like Annuit Ciptis and Novus Ordo Seclorum. Translation: we approve this new world order. Love the guys who run everything. And the number of times the number 13 shows up on US currency, it's like a bingo card for secret rituals. 13 arrows, 13 olive leaves, 13 stars. We get it. Founding fathers, you loved secret codes more than democracy. Many early currency designers were Freemasons or Rosicrucians. They believed money wasn't just for buying stuff. It was a sacred tool to influence reality. Like a ritual token, the way monopoly money influences family arguments, but on a national scale. They embedded numerology, sacred geometry, and even astrological references into your daily transactions. You weren't just paying for coffee. You were participating in a mass symbolic system designed to shape your subconscious. So yeah, your wallet might be a portable altar, and your ATM card is probably one bad chant away from summoning something. You ever notice how some of the most brilliant people in history were dismissed as mad or delusional? Yeah. That might not have been an accident. Enter the secretive alliance of early psychiatric authorities, religious institutions, and a few conveniently powerful guilds who realized that the easiest way to erase dissent wasn't to argue with it, but to call it a symptom. In the 18th and 19th centuries, as Enlightenment ideas spread and spiritualist movements gained traction, a bunch of inconvenient people started saying things like, hey, maybe the universe is more than material stuff. Or what if dreams have meaning? Cue the collective eye roll of the establishment, who labeled them hysterics, lunatics, or everyone's favorite, delusional mystics. Psychiatric diagnoses like hysteria and melancholia became intellectual kill switches. Believe in reincarnation, must be schizophrenia, claim to see patterns in sacred geometry, clearly manic. Write 200 pages on cosmic consciousness while living in a cave. Put him in a padded room. This wasn't about mental health. It was about narrative control. Secret societies and ruling bodies realized that the most efficient censorship tool wasn't a torch or a ban. It was pathologizing curiosity. So the next time you hear someone passionately talk about ancient wisdom or energy fields, ask yourself, is that a conspiracy theorist or just someone who hasn't been gaslighted? by 200 years of institutional gatekeeping. Remember that time you invented cold fusion in your garage, and the government came over and, oh wait, wrong timeline, or is it? Throughout modern history, dozens of scientists have claimed to discover groundbreaking tech. Free energy machines, anti-gravity propulsion, consciousness-based healing, only to mysteriously vanish, recant, or die in extremely non-chill ways. Nikola Tesla had patents and blueprints for wireless energy that would have made fossil fuels obsolete. His lab mysteriously caught fire. His documents were confiscated by, wait for it, the US Office of Alien Property. Yes, that's a real thing. The idea here is simple. Knowledge equals control, and control equals money. So when someone stumbles upon a piece of science that could destabilize the status quo, aka anything that would make billionaires less billionaire, why? That knowledge doesn't get published. It gets locked in a vault. Whether it's the Vatican's secret library, corporate black files, or Defense Department archives, humanity might be just one lost prototype away from time travel, interdimensional TikTok, or finally charging your phone without a cable. But until then, enjoy your 12% battery and corporate-approved reality. Let's get weird. Like alphabet soup brewed by alchemists weird. There's a theory, and not just your aunt's Facebook theory, that ancient languages were designed, not just for talking about goats and taxes, but to unlock reality itself. Languages like Sanskrit, Sumerian, and ancient Hebrew weren't just old, they were engineered systems tied to vibrations, geometry, and cosmic math. Some researchers believe that syllables in these languages could literally tune your brain to higher consciousness, like audio cheat codes. But then oops, they got replaced. As empires rose and fell, mysterious forces cough, church councils, colonial powers. Masonic printers started pushing simplified alphabets and gutted down versions of sacred languages. Vibrational meaning, gone. Multi-dimensional grammar, law. How about English instead, with silent letters and words like kernel? This wasn't just linguistic evolution, it was devolution. By stripping language of its original layers, secret groups could make sure the average person wouldn't stumble upon reality-hacking mantras while reading cereal boxes. So while you're struggling to spell February, know that some dusty monk in 900 BCE had access to words that might have opened portals, or at least dramatically improved your Wi-Fi signal. Here's a fun fact that'll break your brain. Most symbols you think of as evil weren't. The pentagram, ancient symbol of harmony and the human microcosm, the all-seeing eye, used to represent divine insight. Even the swastika, once a symbol of life and sun energy across dozens of cultures, got hijacked into a nightmare. So who stole all the good logos and turned them sinister? Spoiler, a mix of political extremists, religious reformers, and secret societies trying to create their own brand identity. It's like if Nike stole the peace sign and convinced everyone it stood for cursed feet. This kind of symbolic theft served two purposes. This kind of symbolic theft served two purposes. To bury the original, empowering meanings deep enough that only initiates could decode them. Symbols are shortcuts to the subconscious. Flip them, distort them, weaponize them, and boom. You control how people feel without saying a word. So next time you see an ancient symbol slapped onto a villain's lair in a video game, remember, it might have once stood for enlightenment before it got rebranded by history's worst PR firms. We've danced around it long enough. Let's talk about the actual hidden hand, not the symbol, but the group. In various whistleblower testimonies, the kind that never make it to Netflix, the hidden hand is described as an ultra-elite network pulling the strings across governments, corporations, media, and religions. This isn't your garden variety Illuminati rumor. This is the belief that there are families and bloodlines who've maintained power for centuries. Through manipulation, blackmail, and the most boring tool of all, bureaucracy. They don't wear cloaks to dramatic. They don't host sacrifices probably. They just own banks, influence wars, and fund think tanks that create your reality with charts and buzzwords. Their symbol, the concealed hand, always behind. The curtain, always out of view. They don't want fame. They want silence. And maybe the reason history feels like it's repeating itself isn't a coincidence. It's a business model. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.